Well, hello, everyone. This is Mitchell Mote. I'm an extension agent here with the University of Tennessee and the Tennessee State University Extension Program in Rutherford County, bringing you episode number 3 in our Yard Smart series. This afternoon, I'm going to spend just a few minutes with you talking about something that relates back to soil fertility. So in this slide right here, we see this gardener, and we see some questions that she may have. And these are fairly common fertilizer questions that a gardener might have run through their mind. The questions pertain to fertilizer, such as, do I need any fertilizer at all? And if so, how much do I need? Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium? Do I need to add lime to it? What's the deal here? How much fertilizer do I need to put out there? Do I need to put any fertilizer at all out there? That's a fairly common occurrence, I think, for most gardeners, needing to know if you need to fertilize, how much, etc. The answer to those questions is pretty easy to come by. It's not a hard process at all. And in reality, applying fertilizers without knowing what your soil pH is and also knowing what the nutrient level of the soil is sort of like shooting at a target while you're wearing a blindfold. You don't really have any idea if you're getting close to the target or not. So when it comes to fertilizing the yard or garden, let's go ahead and take that blindfold off. And don't shoot blindly, just go ahead and soil test. Soil testing is a great way to find out what the soil nutrient level is there on your particular site. And a good soil sample is the first step in obtaining an accurate soil test that accurately reflects what the nutrient level is in the soil on your particular site. So how do you take a good soil sample? Well, first of all, let's consider that soil sampling in an existing yard should be done by management area or areas that are going to be managed the same way, or areas that produce the same crop. For example, are you growing turf grass or in the lawn areas? Are you growing vegetables in a vegetable garden? Is it a flower or a shrub in beds, etc.? But those areas that are growing the same kind of crop that are going to be managed the same way should be sampled the same. A sample that is representative of a management area, and you can see the different management areas illustrated here on this diagram on the slide. But a representative sample of a management area is composed of several different subsamples that are mixed together to create a composite sample of the area in question. Now, for example, if the front lawn and the back lawn are fairly uniform and they're going to be maintained in turf grass, it's not necessary to sample the front and the back lawn separately. Just collect and thoroughly mix several subsamples to create a composite of the entire lawn area. It doesn't matter if you're growing entirely different grasses in the two lawn sections, as long as these areas are similar to one another, include both the front and the back in the same sample. The difference in grass species or types can be accounted for when you select the appropriate crop codes when we fill out the soil test information sheet, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Now, there's not a pat answer as to how many subsamples you should take from a particular management area. But the larger the area, it would stand to reason, the more subsamples that you collect will provide a more representative sample. For average size lawns, say in the 10,000 to 15,000 square foot range, you probably should take somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 subsamples. There is not a penalty for taking too many subsamples other than maybe having some extra sweat, but that may equate to more calories burned. So that's really a positive. But too few subsamples can mean a less than representative sample of that area. When you begin to take your sample using that walking W or zigzag pattern that you see illustrated here in the diagram is a good collection pattern to follow. Now, if it's on a site where it's a brand new site where there are no established gardens or beds, nothing like that has been established there previously, the entire lot then could be sampled as a unit and various crop codes selected on the information sheet, because thus far it's all been managed the same, meaning it hasn't really been managed at all. It's a brand new site, and so you've got a blank canvas there to start painting on, if you will. Now, a lot of times you'll hear presentations about soil sampling, and they'll suggest you use a soil probe that you can see a couple of soil probes pictured here. The one on the far left leaned up against the wall, and then the one in the center picture is a picture of a soil probe that has a core of soil in it. But you'll often see these references saying these are good tools for you to use to collect soil samples, and they are. They're perfectly good tools. They're great tools, But most homeowners don't have one of those, and it's not really necessary to go out and get one because a shovel will work just fine for collecting a soil sample. But if you're going to use a shovel, kind of follow along with these steps. First thing you need to keep in mind is you need to sample the top 6 inches of soil. So you see pictured here, the shovel is, we place the shovel in the ground. We're going to take out a slice of soil. And then the picture on the right there, we've taken that slice of soil out and got the ruler laid up there to it. So you'll see we're sampling the top 6 inches of soil. We want to sample the top 6 inches of soil. That's the management area that we feel that we can do a pretty good job of manipulating and controlling, via the means of fertilizers and other soil amendments. Um, but the question sometimes folks will ask is, what if I don't have 6 inches of soil? If you don't have 6 inches of soil, it's going to be difficult for you to grow any crop there. But I guess if that's the case, then you're going to sample what you do have. But hopefully you're going to have 6 inches of soil to sample. So you sample, you pull out that 6 inch soil slice, and you're going to have a bucket along with you. That's what you're going to put your sub samples in. Now, if you were going across the yard and you were taking 6 inch samples from 10 to 12 to 15 different locations, and you had a soil slice for every one of those subsamples, that bucket's going to get full and awfully heavy pretty quick. So it's not necessary to put the entire soil slice in the bucket. You can see illustrated here in these pictures, the picture on the left side, it shows that taking an old knife and just kind of cut out a strip right down the center of the soil slice. That strip's in, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide, and then just took that same knife and cut the top where the grass, the organic matter is, and the root mass. I just cut that off, and you can see that pictured over here on the right hand side. Now we've got this section of soil that came right out of the center of that soil slice. That's the part we're going to throw over in our bucket, and we're going to continue to go across the area that we're sampling in that zigzagging pattern and collect enough of those subsamples. And if we're using a shovel, just to take that center slice out of the shovel slice and drop that into the bucket, we're going to mix that up thoroughly, and that's going to create our composite sample that we're going to package up and send into the soil lab. Now, how much soil does it take? Well, the soil lab provides these boxes that you can see pictured right here, and you fold these up, put them together, just follow the directions, and it makes a little box there, and that will hold about 1.5 cups of soil. That's how much soil it takes. You don't want to skimp on the soil. Go ahead and fill that box up. Granted, we live in a place where our soil is at a premium, but we don't want to waste it. But we do want to go ahead and put enough soil in there to make sure that there is going to be enough to have an accurate test run. And you'll see there's a place where you put your name on there. There's also a spot there for field or client. You don't have to fill that part out. That's maybe if you were doing this on a commercial basis for a customer, you might put their name or what field it came from in that case. But just as a homeowner, it's not necessary. You put your name on there, and you can put a sample ID on there. And again, that sample ID is just something that will allow you to identify where that sample came from when you get the report back. It doesn't mean anything to the lab. If most people are sending in a single sample, they'll call it sample 1. Or if it's a sample from the lawn, they'll call it lawn. Or from the vegetable garden, they'll call it veggie garden or something like that. But anyway, you assign it a sample number. But the point is, you want enough soil to fill that little box up right there when you collect your sample, and that takes roughly 1.5 cups of that well mixed, all those subsamples mixed together to create that composite sample. So you get the little box filled out, you fill it full of soil, and then you're going to fill out the lawn and garden soil submission sheet. Now you can access these a couple of different ways. You can pick copies of the soil test submission sheet up here at the Extension Service office. You can also go to the University of Tennessee Soil Plant and Pest Center website, which you'll see up here on the form on the left side of the screen. That's soillab.tennessee.edu. Again, that's soillab.tennessee.edu, and you can download, print off the soil submission sheets right there without ever leaving your home. But anyway, that's what the thing looks like. You're going to fill that out, put in your personal information, and then you're going to get down here into the sample part, and you're going to give the sample name or number. Again, that could be number 1, or you could say lawn or garden, etc., whatever the case may be. And then the plant section here, it says plant 1, plant 2, plant 3, plant 4. That's where you put the crop that you're going to grow. That crop might be turf grass, it might be cool season turf grass, it might be warm season turf grass, it might be a general vegetable garden, it might be ground covers. Okay, but there's various crop codes listed on the soil submission sheet itself, and you choose from those crop codes. Now you can see some of the common lawn and garden crop codes listed here on the front of the sheet, down here where my cursor is, and you'll see that for lawn cool season, the code is L. For warm season grasses like Bermuda grass and zoysia grass, the code is LB. For general vegetable garden, that's corn, tomatoes, peppers, green beans, your vines, squashes, etc., things like that, the crop code is G. For shrubs, acid-loving shrubs, the crop code you'll see here is ORALS. For non-acid-loving shrubs, by the way, what's an acid-loving shrub? Well, you know, an azalea is an acid-loving shrub. A rhododendron is an acid-loving shrub. So the crop code for those acid-loving shrubs, if you have a bed where you're going to grow azaleas, for example, you would use the code ORALS. If you were going to have non-acid-loving shrubs, you know, for example, maybe some forsythia or something else, you know, then the code is ORNAS. Just for shade trees in general, the code is ORST. So anyway, lots of different codes there. There's codes for flowers, for perennial flowers, for annual flowers, for roses, etc. Then you got some fruit crops, and you can flip the sheet over on the backside. You can see even more crop codes there. So hopefully, most any of the crops that you might be thinking about growing, you'll find the crop codes listed there. And if perchance you are growing something where there's not a crop code provided, then you would spell that out specifically on the soil test information sheet under the planting options. You say, I'm growing kiwi or whatever the case may be, if it's something that's not listed there in the first place. Okay, so you get your information sheet, you fill it out. Here's an example of one that's been filled out already. This fellow put his name on here, the address, and be sure to include your email address, because if you put your email address on there, then you're going to get your soil test report back much sooner than if it has to be sent through the U.S. Postal Service. So this individual has filled out the sheet. They called their sample name lawn. They're using 3 different crop codes. They put the code L for a cool season turf grass. They put crop code ORST for for shade trees, and then they use crop code G just for a general vegetable garden. All right, so they've got that thing all filled out. They've got their box of soil, and if what does it cost to get a soil test? If you bring that soil test here to the Extension Service office, and you leave it for us to mail to the lab. And by the way, our lab is located, it's on the campus at Ellington Agricultural Center in Nashville. But if you bring that soil test here to us and drop it off for us to mail to the lab, it'll cost $20. If you carry it yourself or mail it yourself, then the cost is $15. That's how much the soil test costs. And if you're going to send it there yourself, you know, you can ship it or you can mail it to the address. It's included here on the soil test box. It's also included on the soil test information sheet. You send it to Soil Plant and Pest Center, 5201 Marchant Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, 37211. Now, the only difference there would be to that information I just gave you is if you are growing things in beds. For example, you have vegetables that are growing in beds, raised beds or other beds, where you are using a high percentage of the bagged, you know, manufactured kind of soil, like bagged growing media, bagged topsoil, bagged growing soil, etc. If you are using, if you have a bed and you have greater 50% or greater of the growing media of the soil in that bed comes from bagged soil or other manufactured soil types, then instead of having that little soil test box full, you're going to need a half-gallon Ziploc bag of material. Okay, so just it's going to take more material if you're using a growing media that's better than 50% of the bagged topsoil or other growing media, the manufactured kind of stuff. It's going to take a full half gallon of that. And instead of using the traditional soil test, You're also, and by the way, you'll put your name and your sample number on the bag because it's going to match up with what you put on the soil test sheet. But instead of the conventional soil test sheet, if that's the case, then you're going to be using what's called a potting or a greenhouse media submission sheet because it is less than 50% native soil. So you complete that just like you would with the uh, the regular soil test, but you just tell on there that I'm growing a vegetable garden in raised beds, and I need to know what the fertility recommendations are for that. In this case, the cost is $40 if you leave it here at the extension office for us to mail to the lab, and it's $35 if you mail it or you carry it to the lab yourself. And folks, that's it. That's all there is to taking a good soil sample that represents the area that you're going to be managing. You follow these directions, and you get it sent to the lab. You can typically expect your soil test results and that report to come back to you via email anytime within 2 to 3 days after that sample arrives there at the lab. Now, folks, again, my name is Mitchell Mote. You can reach me here at the Extension Service office at the office phone number 615-898-7710, or send me an email at mote1@utk.edu. That's mmote1@utk.edu. If you have a question about soil sampling or any other lawn, garden, agriculture related question, I'll sure do my best to answer it for you. And if I can't do it, then I have other coworkers here, and then I'll bet between us that we can probably come up with a solution to whatever problem you might have or an answer to that question you may have. Well, folks, that's all I've got for you. I hope you found this information useful, and I hope you'll tune in again. Until next time, this is Mitchell Mote from the University of Tennessee and the Tennessee State University Extension Program saying so long.